There is a map hidden in every human hand, a constellation of curves, forks, and ridges that whispers stories older than memory, deeper than the mind. To the untrained eye, it may seem mere biology. Creases formed through repetitive motion, lines shaped by the mechanics of grasping, touching, holding. But those who dare to look beyond the veil, who feel the pull of the mystic undercurrent that runs beneath our waking life, begin to sense a secret. The hand is not simply a tool of action. It is a mirror of destiny. It begins subtly, as most truths do. Perhaps you've stared at your palm in quiet moments, entranced by its silent topography, wondering why one line is deeper than another, or why certain markings seem almost etched rather than formed. Or maybe you've noticed how some people, inexplicably, seem marked by fate, as though life itself bends around them, sometimes lifting them, sometimes testing them with fire. These individuals walk with an invisible signature, a resonance you can feel long before they speak. They are the ones the ancients called chosen, not chosen by culture or by creed, but selected by the architecture of spirit for a path less common, often less comfortable, but undeniably charged with meaning. But what does it mean to be chosen truly? The word is heavy, almost mythic. It echoes with biblical thunder and esoteric mystery, yet its truth is more intimate than most imagine. Being chosen is not about superiority. It is not a pedestal or a crown. It is a summons, a soul-deep invitation to awaken from the collective dream and step into a reality governed not by surface law, but by spiritual architecture. And, as strange as it may sound, the imprint of this invitation is etched directly into the palms of those who carry it. Across time, hand analysis has been dismissed as superstition by the rational mind, or romanticized into novelty by pop culture. But when approached as an ancient language, a glyph system of the soul, its depths become undeniable. The hand is a portal. Its lines and mounts, textures and shapes are far more than skin deep. They echo with archetypes and spiritual frequencies that can reveal one's calling, one's inner battles, and even the nature of the spiritual contract carried into this life. Within this vast system of signs and signals, a remarkable truth emerges. Not all chosen ones are the same. Just as there are different roles in a cosmic orchestra, there are different types of those summoned by the deeper forces of evolution. Their distinctions are not measured by power or prestige, but by purpose. And in the hands of each, encoded in sacred geometry and energetic expression, we can detect three primary archetypes, three types of chosen ones, each carrying a unique flame in the dark. Some are guardians of light, those born to anchor wisdom, to remember the original instructions, and to serve as lighthouses in the fog of forgetting. Their hands often reveal strong Saturn or Jupiter mounts, deep fate lines, or mystical crosses. Others are catalysts of chaos, the sacred disruptors who awaken through adversity and often awaken others through their trials. They bear markings that appear fractured, asymmetrical, or jagged, signaling intense karmic refinement. Then there are the bridgers of worlds, souls born to span realms, to translate spirit into matter and matter into spirit, often marked by rare simian lines or deeply intersecting heart and head lines. But to see these roles clearly, one must look beyond form and into essence. Hand analysis, in this context, is not fortune-telling. It is soul reading. It is the art of decoding the energetic architecture encoded into the very form of the body. And when applied to those who feel the hum of purpose, the ache of spiritual longing, or the strange isolation that often precedes awakening, it becomes a sacred science. There is no coincidence in the way your hands were formed. The spiral of your fingerprints, the depth of your lifeline, the forks and feathers along your fate line, they are not accidents. They are echoes of the soul's blueprint, whispers from the invisible realms, reminding you who you are beneath the masks, beneath the stories, beneath the inherited noise of the world. We live in a time when many feel the pull of something ancient and essential, a longing to remember, to realign, to know not just what they are, but why they are. And in the quiet sanctuary of the palm, there exists a passageway back to that knowing. This exploration, identifying the 3 types of chosen ones by hand analysis, is not just an intellectual journey. It is a descent into symbolic terrain, a pilgrimage through sacred anatomy. It is for those who have felt the fire of initiation burn beneath the surface of life and seek confirmation that their pain, their visions, their inner callings are not delusions, but directives. Together, we will unravel the subtle language of hands, not merely as physical extensions of action, but as metaphysical scrolls encoded with purpose. We will walk through the signs and symbols that mark the chosen, interpret their meanings through myth and mysticism, and ultimately explore what it means to live from the awareness of being selected by the deeper harmonics of life. And so we begin not with the hand itself, but with the invitation it carries, not with the lines, but with the silence they disturb. In this silence, you may find your echo. To understand the markings of the chosen, one must first understand the language of the soul, the invisible ink in which destiny writes itself upon the flesh. Hand analysis, when stripped of its carnival fog and restored to its ancient dignity, is less a predictive device and more a Rosetta Stone for the spiritual self. It decodes how energy condenses into form, how intention leaves residue on matter, and how the soul, ever fluid, ever eternal, presses itself against the boundaries of physicality in the hope that we might look closer and remember. In the folds and ridges of the hand, a deeper architecture lives. But to read it is to move past mere lines and toward the currents that give those lines meaning. Here, we begin to see that the hand is not a map to fate, but a mirror of it, an echo of who you were before forgetting, and a hint of who you must become to fulfill the contract hidden in your birth. At the core of this exploration lie 3 intertwining truths that define the framework of all chosen ones, regardless of type. These truths are not abstract philosophies, but living principles that pulse beneath the surface of all meaningful hand analysis. They do not shout, they hum. They do not instruct, they reveal. First, the body is the record of the soul. The modern world has tried to divorce the soul from the body, treating one as mystical abstraction and the other as mechanical object. But the ancients knew better. They understood that the body is not the prison of the soul, but its parchment, its living manuscript. Every mark, every curvature, every peculiar asymmetry tells a story. The hands, in particular, are dynamic expressions of this inner text. They change over time, respond to experience, and evolve with consciousness itself. As above, so below. As within, so without. Your palm is not merely yours. It is you in condensed form, drawn in lines of light. This means that any spiritual role or archetype, such as those carried by the chosen ones, must and will appear in the physical form. Not because spirit is crude, but because form is sacred. The chosen ones do not walk invisibly. They carry the imprint of their path in their hands, in plain sight, though few have been taught how to see. Second, there are no universal maps, only archetypal patterns. In the West, the desire for certainty often drives people to seek one-size-fits-all explanations. But hand analysis is not about formulas. It is about listening. The palm is a landscape, and each hand is a unique terrain. What reveals a guardian of light in one person might appear differently in another. Why? Because the hand speaks in archetypes, not in absolutes. The three types of chosen ones, guardians, catalysts, and bridgers, are not job descriptions. They are soul frequencies, expressions of a deeper alignment between spirit and matter. Each archetype carries its own symbolic vocabulary, and yet each individual carries it in their own dialect. A deep fate line might mean one thing in the hand of a catalyst, and something very different in the hand of a bridger. True reading is not mechanical. It is intuitive precision, the capacity to hear the tone behind the texture, the music behind the form. This is why the analysis of chosen ones cannot be reduced to superstition or technique. It demands presence. It requires reverence. For in every hand is not just data, but destiny, and destiny must be approached with awe. Third, the line between illusion and truth runs through the palm. We live in an age of masks, digital, emotional, spiritual. Many claim to be awakened, chosen, enlightened. But when one's identity is based on performance rather than essence, the truth cannot be hidden from the hands. There is no filter on a palm, no algorithm to amplify illusion. The hand shows what is real, not who we pretend to be, but who we are when no one is watching. This is why hand analysis, when used with clarity and sincerity, is a sacred art. It strips away persona. It bypasses language. It speaks from soul to soul. And for the chosen ones, this can be both confronting and liberating. For to see one's true markings is to be seen by the divine. It is to remember that one's suffering, one's longings, one's uncanny sense of disconnection or mission were never random. They were written in from the start. And so, we return to the central concept. The three types of chosen ones. They are not roles one applies for. They are spiritual resonances that can be discovered, confirmed, and embraced. Their distinctions do not lie in status, but in alignment. The guardian of light protects ancient wisdom, often appearing in hands with grounded symmetry, clear purpose lines, or sun signs that suggest influence through teaching or healing. The catalyst of chaos endures the crucible, often marked by broken lines, challenge marks, and sudden forks, each a symbol of transformational fire. The bridger of worlds dances between dimensions, and in their palms we often find rare configurations, lines that defy tradition, prints that suggest hybrid identities, markings that refuse to stay in one category. But again, these are not mechanical identifications. They are archetypal signatures that require discernment. They must be read like sacred music, not just for melody, but for intention, rhythm, and tone. And behind each type is a path of initiation, a journey the soul must take to fully embody the role it was encoded to fulfill. Thus, the task is not just to identify, but to remember, to let the palm act not as proof of superiority, but as a key to unlock the deeper self. In that sense, hand analysis becomes not divination, but revelation. There are stories we carry without knowing, stories woven into the lines of our palms like silent parables etched in flesh. These stories are not told with words, but with shapes, curves, forks, spirals, and shadows that move not only through the hand, but through the entire soul. And within these strange and sacred shapes, the archetypes of the chosen ones whisper their truths. To understand the deeper nature of these three types, the guardian, the catalyst, and the bridger, we must step beyond the surface into the mythic. Not the myth of fantasy, but the myth of soul truth, the hidden language that has always lived beneath human speech, passed from dream to dream, from firelight to firelight, from star to star. Let us begin in the time before time, in a place not found on maps, but only remembered in silence. A place where souls were given form by the great pattern, where each being was asked a singular question: what light will you carry into the dark? And depending on the answer, a mark was placed, not on the forehead, but in the hand, a sacred trace of their vow. The guardian of light, the keeper of the flame. In one corner of the great pattern, a soul stepped forward and said, "I will carry the memory of what was pure before the world began to forget." This was the guardian. Their hands bore the mark of endurance, long, steady lines that curved like ancient rivers carved through stone. Often a fate line that traveled cleanly from the base to the heart, or a sun line rooted deep and unwavering, revealing a purpose not imposed but chosen before birth. These hands were built like temples, stable, grounded, often broad-fingered with square tips, suggesting service, strength, and sacrifice. The guardian is not loud. They are the flame that never flickers, the one who walks beside others in their storms, carrying the forgotten language of truth in their bones. Their story is one of patience and protection. Often misunderstood, they endure long winters of silence, until a moment comes when the world forgets itself, and they must speak. One guardian was born into a time of great noise. Surrounded by hollow knowledge and performative spirituality, they remained still. From childhood, their hands bore a star beneath the index finger, a Jupiter star, speaking of a leader cloaked in humility. It wasn't until later, when others turned away from inner truth and sought comfort in illusion, that the guardian's silence became a sanctuary. People came, not for answers, but for presence. Their hand bore the weight of it, etched in deep, even pressure lines, marks of someone called not to shine for themselves, but to reflect the divine in others. The catalyst of chaos, the sacred disruptor. In another part of the pattern, a soul answered, "I will be the fire that awakens those who sleep, even if I must burn." This was the catalyst. Their hands were storms. Jagged lines, broken fates, split heart lines that cut like lightning across the palm. Their markings seemed chaotic, until one looked closer and saw the pattern within the fracture. These hands were not flawed. They were forged. Like volcanic rock, their pressure points were high, their lines thick and abrupt. They were born to break patterns, including their own. Catalysts do not enter lives gently. They are thunder in human form. Born into trauma, often misjudged, they are the alchemists who transform pain into awakening. Their hands are often asymmetrical, one palm speaking of vision, the other of battle. They may bear interference lines or crosses on the mount of Saturn, signaling karmic weight, or travel lines that dart and bend unexpectedly, like souls who are called to 100 lives in one. One catalyst was born under the shadow of war, internal and external. Their lifeline broke in 3 places before the age of 25. But along the chaos was a ring of Solomon, encircling the Mount of Wisdom. They were born to see through systems, to shatter what no longer serves. Their fate line, though fractured, re-emerged with even greater clarity after each fall. Their hands bore witness to transformation, not gentle, but absolute. The bridger of worlds, the one between realms. Lastly, a soul stepped forward and whispered, "I will walk between what is seen and unseen, so that they may remember both." This was the bridger. Their hands were rare, not because they were superior, but because they refused to fit into categories. They often bore the simian line, a line where the head and heart converge into one, signaling a fusion of logic and emotion that is both gift and burden. Their hands may also show vertical lines on the lunar mount, revealing a deep connection to dream, intuition, and the invisible dimensions. Bridgers are often misunderstood even by other chosen ones. They speak in metaphors, feel in frequencies, and live with one foot in this world and one in another. Their challenge is embodiment, to take the vastness they carry and give it form. One bridger walked through life as though dreaming it. Their thumb was set low, their fingers long and tapered, their fingerprints whorls, spinning galaxies of uniqueness. They could translate visions into art, pain into poetry. Yet for years, they struggled to fit into any path, any role. Only when they saw their hand, not as a misfit, but as a bridge, did they understand. They were not meant to conform, but to connect, to walk others across the space between doubt and remembrance. These symbolic narratives are not confined to history or fantasy. They live in each of us, to varying degrees. Most will carry one dominant frequency, yet all 3 exist like elemental forces, fire, earth, air, within every soul. The guardian roots, the catalyst ignites, the bridger expands, and our hands, our sacred scrolls, tell the story of which force is calling us home. But understanding the symbolism is only the beginning. The real power lies in integration, in living out the archetype not as myth, but as method, as embodiment, as mission. For what good is it to know one is a guardian, if one hides their light? What meaning is there in being a catalyst, if one fears their own fire? What purpose is there in being a bridger, if one never builds the bridge? The symbolic is the soil, but life demands fruit. To know that your hands bear the symbols of the chosen is not a final revelation. It is the first step across a threshold. For once the flame is named, it must be fed. Once the archetype is seen, it begins to demand expression. A guardian cannot stay silent. A catalyst cannot stay still. A bridger cannot live only on one side of the veil. The recognition calls for transformation, not of identity, but of life itself. And yet, this transformation does not arrive like a thunderclap. It begins in whispers, in how one walks into a room, in how one responds to suffering, in how one chooses to listen when the world has grown deaf. The integration of the chosen archetype is not about becoming something new. It is about becoming visible, finally, as what you already are beneath the detritus of conditioning. Let us begin with the guardian, the keeper of light. In daily life, the guardian may be a teacher, a healer, a parent, or simply a presence who brings coherence to chaos. Their hand may show deep, unbroken lines and strong mounts, but their life path will be defined not by career, but by constancy. In a world built on flux and spectacle, the guardian's medicine is presence. They are the stillness in the storm, the reminder that truth does not shift with trends. Yet this constancy often comes at a cost. Guardians are vulnerable to loneliness, to the fatigue of being the strong one, the pillar for others. Their hand may bear stress lines around the base of the thumb or interference marks beneath the heart line, signs of silent suffering. But their integration lies not in martyrdom, but in boundaries. A guardian who gives without replenishing becomes a dim lantern. Their task is to live in alignment with their own light, to honor their sacred duty without becoming consumed by it. In practice, this may mean creating sanctuaries, spaces where others can rest and remember, but also where the guardian can recharge. It may mean speaking unpopular truths, standing firm when compromise feels easier, or mentoring one who is ready to carry the flame forward. Then there is the catalyst, the alchemical fire. In society, the catalyst often becomes a disruptor, whether through innovation, activism, art, or spiritual confrontation. Their hands are rarely textbook perfect. Their lines clash, fork, break, then resume with fierce determination. This is no flaw. It is a signature of spiritual friction, a necessary element in transformation. Yet catalysts often walk a razor's edge between awakening and implosion. Because they carry the fire, they are often the first to burn. Many catalysts feel misunderstood, even feared. They may struggle with impulsivity, depression, or chronic disillusionment. Their hands often show intense Mars energy, strong lower thumbs, active lines darting across the palm, signs of both courage and danger. Their real-world integration lies in channeling the fire, not extinguishing it. For the catalyst, stability is not found in avoidance, but in sacred structure. They need creative outlets that allow for destruction and rebirth, sculpting chaos into form. This might manifest as leading movements, initiating difficult conversations, writing works that rupture the status quo, or walking away from a false life no one else had the courage to leave. Their success is not measured in comfort, but in transmutation. Did they burn just to burn, or did they become the forge? And then we come to the bridger, the walker between worlds. The bridger's life is often marked by contradiction, introverted yet expressive, grounded yet ethereal, logical yet mystical. Their hands might show the rare simian line, a looping fingerprint on the lunar mount, or dominant intuition lines, each suggesting a foot in the seen and the unseen. For bridgers, the challenge is integration, not just of energy, but of identity. They are the translators of the mystical into the practical, the builders of temples in unexpected places. But the risk is dissociation. Bridgers, when overwhelmed by the density of life, may retreat into fantasy, avoid form, or lose themselves in existential fog. Their hands may bear floating headlines or upward flying heart lines, signs of a soul not fully anchored. Their task is to incarnate their vision. That means learning the languages of both worlds, the logic of systems, the mechanics of creation, so that their gifts don't remain in the dream world. The bridger must become an architect of meaning, designing experiences, businesses, rituals, or communities that make the invisible visible. Whether through science, art, or intuitive mentorship, their real-world path is not to escape reality, but to elevate it by merging dimensions. Yet beyond each individual archetype lies a shared invitation, a call to embodied purpose. All chosen ones must confront the same turning point. Will you live as if your hand's markings are true? Will you shape your life to match the blueprint etched within you? To integrate this knowledge, one must begin with attention. Study your hand not with analysis, but with reverence. Watch how it moves when you speak your truth versus when you deny it. Observe how the lines shift over months or years, how deepening or softening may mirror inner choices. Begin asking your hands, what do you want to create? What truth do you carry? What is the pain behind that scar? And what power now grows there? In daily life, this awareness can translate into bold decisions. A guardian may step into mentorship after decades of silence. A catalyst may finally walk away from a system they once feared to challenge. A bridger may birth a spiritual school wrapped in the skin of a tech startup or a healing modality rooted in sound and structure. The form is irrelevant. The alignment is everything. To walk as a chosen one is not to become something otherworldly. It is to become more fully yourself. And the hand, that most human of instruments, is both the proof and the path. It touches, it holds, it gives, it creates. What more sacred compass could there be? And so we return to the beginning, though nothing is as it was. You have wandered through the terrain of the sacred hand, not as a tourist, but as one seeking remembrance. What at first may have seemed a curiosity, lines on the palm, symbols under skin, now reveals itself as something far older, far deeper, a covenant. A living agreement between soul and matter, sealed before your first breath, recorded not in ink, but in flesh. In this final turning, we must ask the question that echoes through every chosen one's journey. Now that you know, will you choose? For the knowledge itself is not the transformation. Insight is only the key. Living, it is the door. Your hands may bear the marks of a guardian, a catalyst, a bridger. You may feel them all at once, or cycle through them over the arc of a lifetime. But knowing which fire you carry does not light the path. It only shows you where to begin walking, and walk you must. There is a deep stillness that settles when one accepts the truth of their inner architecture. It is not the stillness of surrender, but of alignment. A soul no longer spinning in doubt. A heart no longer aching to be seen. A life no longer contorting to fit into smaller forms than it was designed for. When you hold your hand before you now, it is no longer anonymous. It is a scroll, a prayer, a map etched in sacred geometry. The lines are not random. They are resonances. Each curve is a glyph in the language of origin. Each break is an initiation. Each fork, a crossroads you have met or will meet again. Perhaps your life has felt haunted by an invisible ache, a sense that there was something you were meant to do, to be, to become, but could never name. Perhaps you've been told to just live a normal life, but the word normal always tasted bitter in your mouth. Perhaps you've waded through suffering that seemed unfair, too heavy for the shape of your body, only to realize, now, that it was forging you, refining you, preparing you for the weight of your role. This is the hidden truth of the chosen. They are not made through comfort. They are sculpted in the fire of contradiction, in the silence of waiting, in the storm of inner reckoning. And when they awaken to their markings, the world around them begins to shift, not because the world changes, but because they do. The guardian finds their voice and steadies the room. The catalyst channels their chaos and lights the fuse of evolution. The bridger dares to bring heaven down into human form. None of them seek applause. They do not perform their purpose. They become it. And what of the others? Those who may not yet feel chosen, or who fear that their hands bear no special mark. Let it be said now, every soul carries a seed of light. Not all are called in this lifetime to awaken to the fire directly, but all can remember in time. All can choose to listen to the whisper beneath the skin. Hand analysis, when returned to its sacred roots, is not about categorizing souls or labeling people with spiritual hierarchies. It is about recognizing the shape of your truth. It is about becoming so intimate with your own blueprint that you stop seeking answers outside yourself. It is about trusting that the divine left a signature in your flesh, and that signature is your permission slip to begin. In ancient cultures, the palm was more than an organ of action. It was a talisman, a way to transfer energy, a way to heal, a way to vow. And perhaps that is the final integration, to realize that the hand you have studied is also the hand you must extend to others, to the work, to the future. You are not here to only know your markings. You are here to activate them. Touch the world as a guardian with the calm weight of remembered truth. Touch the world as a catalyst with the sacred fire of disruption and rebirth. Touch the world as a bridger with the delicate precision of one weaving spirit through matter. And in doing so, remember this: your hand is not simply yours. It is the living fragment of something infinite, a fragment gifted to you so that you may leave your mark in return. Not on stone, not on screen, but in soul. Let your hand become a covenant. Let your life become its fulfillment. You were not randomly formed. You were written, and now you are reading yourself.